Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Connecting Tucson with Jamie Overturf, broadcasting from Tucson Business Radio X, situated in Stewart Title Corporate offices off of Broadway. Connecting Tucson is all about connecting our community, local businesses, and organizations to help our community grow and thrive. Today, we have an awesome guest in our studio, Terry Keefe. Hello, Terry. How are you?
Hi, Jamie.
She is the owner and lead instructor of Take Charge. Take Charge is a reliable resource for women who want to learn about a variety of options for their personal safety. We will be learning more about these classes, perspectives a little bit later. But first, let's get to know the woman behind the scenes in classes. Terry was the Amateur Athletic Union Miss USA, Miss America, and Miss Universe through 86 and 88. She is a mother of two teenage boys, Sean and Patrick, and lives right here in the foothills of Tucson. When she's not here, she's usually in South Dakota. Terry is a sought-after speaker and respected and accomplished competitive shooter, holding several accreditations. Throughout her classes and her speaking events, she shares information on how you can avoid being a soft target to criminals, introduces women to additional tools such as pepper gels and pepper sprays, and demonstrates how to correctly use them and ward off an attack. Not to mention so very much more. I'm excited to be sharing her story and getting her to tell us about her and her unique insights and expertise. Terry, welcome, and thank you for coming on Connecting with Tucson.
Thank you, Jamie. It's great to be here, and thank you for caring about your listeners enough to invite me.
Oh, I'm super excited. I wish that there were more people out there that talked about this, but honestly, when you get together with your girlfriends, that's not a topic that you talk about usually. Yep. It's more about what are you doing this weekend, or how's your hair, when are you going to get your nails done? And I do think that that's something that we need to bring more of an awareness to for, I think, our society. I think it's important. So
absolutely.
Well, Terry, it's an impressive list of accomplishments. I have to say, and I'm a little bit intimidated.
Don't be.
Oh, don't be. Well, you're very accomplished and you're a wonderful person. Let's start off by letting my listeners get to know a little bit more about you. Tell me about what you did prior to Take Charge and what brought you to Tucson.
Sure. I grew up in a very small town in Kansas, attended Kansas Newman College, got my nursing degree, and was on my way to hopefully becoming a doctor. I had a passion to learn about bariatric medicine. And I was made it as far as the bookstore in Stanford, but I met my husband there in San Francisco, and we got married, and then I got into real estate investing instead.
Okay, so completely sidetracked from what you were going to do. All right, so did you do a lot in real estate?
We did commercial investing together, and then we traveled different places. So not as a broker, but as a landlord. Okay,
so you were in Seattle when you were doing that, or?
San Francisco.
San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so how is San Francisco from Tucson? What are the differences that you see?
Oh, goodness, big difference. Tucson is more of a friendly community. We know everybody.
Yes.
I loved San Francisco for the parks and golf, the Olympic Club, the restaurants. In fact, one of the restaurants there, his chef is now a restaurant or an owner here at Tavolino's.
Oh,
so I didn't
love that place.
Isn't it wonderful? Yeah, so it's a small world.
Such a small world.
Yeah.
So obviously you probably didn't think you were going to start off in real estate. What brought you to real estate in that early beginnings?
It was his job or his profession. And when we traveled so much between San Francisco and Sun Valley, Idaho, and South Dakota, it just became difficult to keep my credentials as a nurse.
Oh, okay.
And then I became a mom and was a stay-at-home mom. So full-time mom.
There's nothing wrong with the stay-at-home
and
full-time mom.
That's
tell
my
you,
preference.
I missed a lot of years with, my stepson. So I can see how it is. Let's now you didn't start off by wanting to own your own business or do this type of take charge, obviously. So walk me through just who are you and what motivated you to start Take Charge, I guess is the best question I can ask.
Right. So, again, I grew up in a very small town in Kansas. I really didn't give my personal safety much thought. I had two big brothers, my dad to kind of rely on for my safety, and then got married, and I relied on my husband to keep me safe. But when the BG, we call them in the industry, the bad guys showed up at my house, I thought I was safe. I live in a gated community. I had I had three big dogs at the time. I had security system hardwired in my house. But when he showed up, I had no idea what to do. And it didn't take me very long to realize that my personal safety is in deep trouble. And the men I relied on were 1,200 miles or 1,300 miles away on a fishing trip. So sadly, I became a victim of a crime. And after that day, I went out and got the training that I needed to keep myself safe, and went through training the ladies in my family. And then their friends wanted to learn, and their friends. And so that's when I got my certifications and started Take Charge.
That is so phenomenal. I don't know many women that would have wanted to, I guess, take that path that you would have that you took to help train other people doing what that is. Can you tell us a little bit about the incident and how that affected you?
You know, it was life-changing, terrifying. So basically what happened, it took a couple weeks to figure out who the person was. Through a provoked phone call, he was arrested and went to jail. And I made my way to the courthouse to get my order of protection. The wake-up call to me was when I left the judge's courtroom and I was escorted out by the security man. And we were in the elevator, and he said, "Ma'am, I want you to be safe. I hope you believe in your Second Amendment rights." And that was my first wake-up call.
Okay.
And I went, okay, what does that mean? And he goes, "Well, this is just a piece of paper." And that was terrifying to me. So I went home that night. I had a little bit of a probably a false sense of security knowing that he was in jail. And my second wake-up call happened about 11 o'clock, 11:30 that night, when the detective on the case called me. And he said, "Terry, I just want to let you know that he is going to be facing a felony charge. He's posted bail, and they're going to release him probably within 20 minutes. And that was panic mode.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was absolutely terrifying. And I had no idea what to do. So I called my husband. I said, "Honey, what do I do?" And he goes, "You need to get a gun." And I didn't grow up with guns. I don't have a military or police background. I had no desire to shoot one, let alone own one or two or 12 or 13 now.
We call them the guitar something arsenal or something. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, it happens.
It does. And then, so that's what I did. I said, "Okay, what do I buy?" He told me which gun to buy, but I didn't know how to shoot it. And the person at the gun store, he said, "Hey, you need to take a CCW class. Get your CCW permit." And I'm like, "Okay, what is that?" And so I signed up for it. It was a month later. Sit through the class, 8 hours of classroom time. I learned about the Arizona Revised Statute, Title 13, Chapter 31 and 4.
For everybody here, I'm sure you know what that means, but we'll get into it a little bit later.
Yeah, and so I got my permit. I still had not fired a gun yet, still sitting in the box. So I went back to the gun store. Actually, I went to a gun range, and I said, "Hey, I've got my CCW permit. I need to learn to protect myself. I need to learn to shoot this gun." He goes, "Well, the lady that used to shoot or used to train, she's no longer training, but so-and-so is training, but he's deployed. He'll be back in 3 months."
Oh, man. 3 months?
I know. It was quite a road. So back I go to the gun store. I signed up. I went back to them. I said, "Hey, I've got my permit. What do I need to do?" And he said, "Well, we have an intro to pistol class coming up next month." So I signed up for the intro pistol. We spent another 6 hours in the classroom, and they were attempting to teach me, who I had never touched a gun before, how to shoot with a PowerPoint. And then, I know.
Wow.
So
That's an eye-opener right there.
It was an eye-opener. And so I watched the video. We, after it was the second day or midday or something, we broke and we went out to I think it was an abandoned cement mine or something. I don't know what it was, somewhere in town. And they put all the guns out on the table, and he started barking orders at us like a Marine. And I was terrified. I was shaking so bad that I couldn't pull the trigger. Oh. And it was not a good experience. So when we broke for lunch, they said, "Hey, you got 45 minutes. Go ahead and go into town, grab a bite to eat, come back." I put the gun in the car and went home. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing this." But the cool thing, there's a good thing about this, is that I had no idea that my neighbor was a concealed carry person, a female that had a gun owner. Mm-hmm. And she said, "Terry, I go to the range a couple times a month. Why don't you join me?"
Oh, that's phenomenal.
It was cool. And so she wasn't an instructor, but she said, "Look, I'll teach you what I know." So she took me to the range. It was a private range, and it wasn't a public range, so it was outdoor. And she showed me everything that she knew about firearms. we had a blast. It was, pun intended, we had so much fun, and since that day, being my background as an athlete also,
Right.
I got introduced into competitive shooting.
Oh.
So that was really what sparked it for me.
That's good.
It's sometimes hard for me to practice a skill that I hope I never have to use. So I'm like, I'm not going to need it today. I'm not going to go to the range. But now as a competitive shooter, I'm like, okay, I got to practice today because I got a tournament Saturday.
Exactly.
I don't want to suck. So,
nobody wants to suck. Somebody wants to hit their target regardless on what they're doing. But
And I don't suck. I shoot good now. So
I was
anyway.
going to say, I'm pretty sure you're really good with the competitive shooting in there. But hey, I'll digress.
Yeah.
So you know what? Thank you so much for sharing your story. I know that there happen to be so many women out there that might be in the same situation you are, that are scared, that don't know what the next steps are to take.
Yeah.
So my question is this. Maybe somebody went through something similar. How do they know where they should go or what they should do? Are there sites out there that they can take a look at? Or how do you help them go to where they need to go?
Well, that's what I hope Take Charge is the reliable resource for women to go, okay, this is what I want to do. Because, it's more than just firearms training as far as Take Charge. But if firearms interest you, I have 4 other instructors that are with me. They're all women. I've handpicked them. And they have my same philosophy. I always tell the women, hey, this is a judgment-free zone.
Love it.
We don't allow spectators or guys on the range. In fact, I say judgment-free and testosterone-free zone. We love you guys, but not in our pistol class.
Exactly.
Yeah. And so I say, ask me any questions. Don't leave here if you have a question. Let me know, because I've been in that exact same position. So that's what I really want to provide for Take Charge, is a judgment-free zone for women to come down and learn to be comfortable and confident with their firearms and just have fun.
Well, I have to say, again, thank you for sharing your story. And I'm happy to see that something good or some transformation came out of something so what I consider horrible.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you share this story in your classes as well. And it probably has a pretty profound impact on the women that you're teaching. And I've heard a couple of more of your stories, which we'll get into. But that actually leads me to my next question, because you kind of touched on it. Do you only teach women?
I have I'll do a co-ed class if it's couples. So if I do a co-ed class, it will either be for your concealed carry weapons permit, which is a classroom time only, or if I have a group that will specifically email me and say, Terry, my husband and I would love to learn. Would you teach us in a semi-private lesson or a small group lesson? Then I'll do. But I don't publish co-ed classes.
And why is that specifically?
To be honest, I can't keep up with the demand of the women on the range that want to learn. It's something, overused word, empowered, but it really is amazing for me as an instructor. I will ask the group before we start, who's nervous, and everybody raises their hand. I know that they're nervous, but we spend so much time in dry fire, and I teach them. Dry fire is learning the the fundamental skills of marksmanship with no ammo at first.
Right.
So maybe I teach grip or sight picture or trigger control, but no ammo. And it just provides a really comfortable environment for them. So it's different. Guys learn different. They just want to start shooting. And women want to know, okay, what's the firing cycle? Why does it do this? Why does a revolver, what is a double action? It's just a different class.
They want to be intelligent when they're talking about it too. I think that's another piece. So you're right. Women and men do learn a little bit differently. And I think having that hands-on approach is something that is so intriguing that we don't get a lot here in Tucson. It's more of the classroom.
Yeah.
And we've talked about CCW. I don't think a lot of my listeners might know what CCW is, even though I do. So why don't you explain what is CCW and how do you get that?
Right. So Concealed Carry Weapons Permit. Yeah. Arizona Concealed Carry Weapons Permit. A lot of people will say, okay, we don't need that in Arizona because we are a constitutional carry, open carry state, right? However, there are a few really important reasons why you would want your permit. For example, my boys are both in school. So K through 12, if I want to drive onto the parking lot of the school armed, stay into my vehicle, unholster my firearm and put it in a locked, secure glove box or safe, I can do that, but I have to have a CCW permit on me. Another important reason for me to have my permit is I like to hike our beautiful parks or state parks. And aren't they gorgeous? Especially this time of year, the wildflowers are starting to bloom.
Weather.
It's like, oh,
I know.
yeah.
You're getting me one nostalgic for going to hiking. So.
But I like to. I'm going to carry a concealed firearm when I hike. But to do that, you have to have a permit on you, not back at the parking lot in your car. Other reasons would be if you're going to be purchasing a pistol, if you want to purchase it that day, it speeds up the process of knowing you've already completed a background check. And the final reason I could think of, let's say if I go to a restaurant that serves alcohol and I want to come in as a concealed carry person and not drink, as long as they have not posted the legal full size you cannot carry a firearm in here, then I can carry as long as I have my permit. And of course, I don't drink alcohol.
Right.
Yeah. So many reasons to have your permit and the reciprocity. So that means when I travel to South Dakota, they recognize my permit in South Dakota from Arizona.
Exactly. So you can carry there, even though they don't have an open carry there.
Correct. Actually, they do now.
Oh,
they just passed it. Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
Just changed
You just
it.
taught me something.
I know. Tennessee's trying to do it too. So, yeah.
So, yeah, a lot of states don't have the open carry, and people do have the misconception that, okay, it's open carry, I can carry wherever. That is not the case.
Absolutely.
And I've had to teach some people that. So it's, I love the fact that you teach people that, and having your concealed carry license is a privilege, and it's not really something that, I mean, you have to work to get it,
right?
But still, I mean, there's still limitations even though you have a concealed carry permit or a CCW. So.
Absolutely. And it really does just teach you in my CCW classes. I go into storage, how to select ammunition. I give my students the perk of knowing how to buy good ammo wholesale, things like that, storage. But then we get into justification of lethal force versus the need to stop a threat.
Right. And we'll get into that a little bit later.
Right.
But I do have a question, because obviously you said you do mainly women, but you do some private classes with men and women, but they have to be couples. Do you find that there's a particular type of woman that really seeks out your class, or do you see that it's kind of a full range?
It is a complete full range.
Okay.
You know, the one of the most exciting classes I had, or kind of really cool, was I had 4 generations of women in my class. I had grandma, mom, sister, daughter. It was so cool.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it was really fun. In fact, they've gone on to shoot and did various competitions too. So, but you know, there is no one
in particular. So
sometimes I'm shocked.
You get a good mix of people who are young, old, newbies, maybe people that are just looking for a refresher, maybe confident users. So yeah, I like it. So what kind of things do you teach in your class?
For the pistol class?
Let's do the pistol class first.
So we always start with the safety rules. There's always a safety briefing that I hold on the range. And then we will get into specific rules for women, or specific rules to the range, things that you need to keep in mind, like if you have a low-cut shirt and brass goes down your shirt, what do you do? Kind of thing, and it's hot.
I laugh because I've had that happen.
I have too. Bounced off my hat and goes right down my shirt, you know. So I teach that. Then we go into what is a sight picture, right? What should I be looking at? Should I look at the gun? Should I look at the target? I'll help all the students determine their eye dominance. So I used to shoot a lot of shotgun and rifle as well. And with those, you look at the target. But when it comes to pistol shooting, it's the sight picture. And we'll get into eye dominance. So whether you're right-handed and left eye dominant can be a trick thing, you know, very tricky sometimes with how to shoot well. But I have experience with that.
Okay.
And then we will go directly to the range. So some of the women will have brought their own firearm, and we'll show them, okay, when you come to the range, here's what you need to do to check that it's empty, because I teach them what does a cold range mean, what does a hot range mean, teach them how to load and unload the gun. We get right into grip, stance, sight picture, trigger control. When I go through the complete fundamentals. And then when I'm comfortable that everybody is safe and confident, they know what all the buttons do and all the gadgets on the gun, then we'll go one-on-one to live fire. That means one student, one instructor to live fire, whether it be their gun or a gun that I've provided.
Okay. So that actually brings another good point. A lot of women, when they first bring a gun, they're bringing their husband's guns that might not be I guess, a good fit for them. So do you find that to be a challenge?
No, it's usually eye-opening because I
Okay.
will bring a variety of guns too that I know that a lot of women like to shoot.
Okay.
And so I love it when somebody brings a gun there and they say, okay, this is not for me. I'm like, perfect. Then let me guide you into what would be possibly a great gun for you. Try this one, or, there are so many variations. And I also tell the students that don't have a gun, they'll say, I don't have a gun yet, but I'll go get one real quick. I'm like, no, please don't.
Yes.
Let me provide you with the fundamentals first, and then it'll make sense. Do you want a safety? Do you want an external safety, a backstrap safety? Do you want an external hammer? Do you want a revolver? It's on and on. And so that is really one of my specialties, helping women decide which firearm they might like.
And that's huge because I know a lot of women or my friends that they're like, I can't shoot my husband's gun. Well, you shouldn't be shooting your husband's gun. You should have, if you're really going to carry a gun, you should be comfortable with it and know it yourself and want to, that's something you should do, in my opinion.
Absolutely.
I don't want to, my husband's gun is huge. I'm like, what it doesn't fit my hand. I can't wrap my hand doesn't go all the way around the grip. So it gets it a little bit loosey-goosey when it tries to fire. And that's not safe for me or anybody else that's near me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think typically the men think that women should have revolvers too. So they'll bring the revolvers with the heavy 11 or 11 and a half pound trigger on them, and they can't pull them.
Those have some kickbacks
And they
too.
Yeah. So and they say, well, I got this because I don't know how to rack the slide. I don't have the strength, but I'll teach them. I have 3 very specific skills or tips to teach women. You can rack the slide on these guns.
There's different ways to do it.
Yes. And they're like, I had no idea.
And that's probably because their husbands only rack it one way and they don't try to practice the other way. So not disregarding the husbands in any ways, but sometimes when you have that relationship, it's hard to teach somebody because you get that hair trigger every once in a while. So
it's kind of like trying to teach your wife to play golf. It's just a bad idea.
Bad idea. Hire somebody else to do it, and then we're good. And then everybody's happy. So besides pistols, you also do a lot of other tools on the range, like pepper spray, pepper gel, and some maybe self-awareness techniques. What are some of these other things that you bring to your classes?
Yeah, so I realize that there are times when even myself as a concealed carry person that I cannot carry a firearm. Maybe it's based on what I'm wearing that day or where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it doesn't mean that I want to be vulnerable to a criminal confrontation. So I create layers of safety for myself, and that's what I teach my students as well. And I also realize that firearms is not for everybody, but sadly, there's 1 in 5 women will be a victim of assault. And if we had some plan in place, that wouldn't be the case. So I teach the defensive sprays. I'll teach the police strength gel. If you have not heard of pepper gel, please come to my class. I grew up with the old time when we had mace and the tear gas and the wasp spray.
Oh God.
This is a whole different generation of personal safety items.
Right.
So pepper gel is oleocapsaicin resin, which is the heat or the oil from the stem of the chili pepper.
Mm-hmm.
And it causes an involuntary eye closure if you squirt somebody pretty much ear to ear. So if somebody is, say, on drugs or something and they get squirted with this stuff, which it goes out 10 or 15 feet, their eyes will close. So it's an involuntary reaction, where the old pepper sprays and mace is like a generic term, like wonder is to bread.
Mm-hmm.
So mace and tear gas are the same thing. Pepper spray, mace, and have tear gas in them. So I will teach the difference. There are times when you want to have pepper spray, and there are times when you should have pepper gel. Pepper gel pretty much eliminates blowback.
And it's a target specific.
It is. So I could use that. Let's say if I'm a realtor showing a house and I get myself in a situation, it can hit just one person and not affect the entire, it won't go through the HVA system of the home.
Right. And then it's in the whole house and it's contaminated. Yeah. The gel is,
office.
yeah, exactly.
It is really.
You don't contaminate yourself.
No, not as much with the gel.
Too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's absolutely cool. And then I also teach striking tools. I've gone through Cobra Defense training, and I teach things like Kubotans, how to, I know sometimes women will say, well, I just carry my keys in my hand. I'm going to punch with it. I say, well, if you're going to do that, let me show you how they're
To hold
actually
it.
meant to be held. Yeah. And then they also are used as glass breakers.
Yep.
So I'll teach the ladies, okay, if you know, for example, the young girl that got into the Uber, the man locked the doors and the windows and she couldn't get out.
Mm-hmm.
If she would have had a Kubotan striking tool, then she could have popped the glass and got out of that situation. So I do teach striking tools, and then I'll teach simple escapes. So I'm not into Taekwondo or the self-defense. I think it has a purpose. But for me, it's going to be, hey,
Get yourself out of the situation.
yeah, if he grabs my arm, what do I do? If I'm grabbed around the neck, what do I do? If he's grabbing my hair, what do I do? So I teach very simple escapes in the classes.
And that is phenomenal. I think everybody could use those.
Yeah.
And I think, if you don't think you need them, it's an eye opener if you've ever had a conversation with someone that's been in that situation. I think
Oh, absolutely. Yes.
it's scary.
Mhm.
And I like to myself get prepared. So, I'll be coming back and doing some refreshers with you. I can't
Good.
wait to see that.
That's awesome.
So now just because I know a lot about, I actually know a fair amount about pistols and gels and pepper spray. I grew up in that kind of household. I have police officers for family members. So it's kind of one of those things I was brought up around it. It's not something that I don't know about, or I know how to rack a gun. I know how to take apart a gun. I know how to put it together. I know how to clean it. I know everything on that piece.
That's cool.
But that doesn't mean that I should be teaching a class, right? So
That's probably true.
let's just put it that way. What makes you qualified to teach these classes?
So I went through a lot of training. I did most of my training at Gunsite Academy up in Paulden, Arizona. It is the premier training facility if you want to go learn they're more combat driven or force on force type training. But for me, it was absolutely spectacular to be able to watch the pros on the range, how they ran the range, managed the range. It was incredible. So I did my certification to become an instructor for pistol, rifle, and shotgun at Gunsite Academy.
Nice.
It was a really great experience. Yeah.
Well, from reading your reviews online, I have to say, and doing some research, the women that come to your classes seem so much more comfortable after going through these classes with you. And many of these women, as you said, have never actually ever held a pepper spray or gel or even a pistol. And to be honest, like I said, these conversations don't come up always with my girlfriends. It's more like, oh, where'd you get your nails done?
Right.
What is your teaching approach, and how do you get these women comfortable and confident using these items? Because like I said, it's hard. If you have someone that's never touched something or grown up with something, it's hard. It's a different approach than I think that maybe like myself that's grown up with it. How do you make them comfortable and confident in their choices on should they choose a gun, should they not choose a gun, or should they maybe carry a pepper gel? How do you help them make that choice?
Right. I talk a lot in the class about having a plan in place and really sitting back and reviewing your lifestyle.
Okay.
That's a big importance. It really varies on, okay, do you have kids in your home? Do you have a disability? Do you work at a place that even allows it? So it's an open discussion in the class, and it's not anything that I can really give them in maybe just the intro class. I'll invite the ladies to come back and train with me every month. So maybe the intro class, they haven't purchased a gun, but they think, I think I like this. And I'll say, great, next month, come back with me. Let's spend 2 more hours. We'll put a lot of lead down range and really see if this is something for you. I have no objection to saying, you know what, keep training. I think you're ready. You're getting there. But it is a process of learning. You have to learn how to clear malfunctions. You have to learn how to perform an emergency reload. So, taking an intro class, I always laugh and say, hey, this is like kindergarten, or this is like
Yes.
driver's ed. I'm not going to take you from driver's ed and then turn you loose in New York driving.
Exactly.
So, same with intro.
And I want to put this out to my listeners, and what you said just really resonated with me. Just because you take one of your classes does not mean that you're ready to carry that gun 100% of the time. You do need to come back and you do need to train with it. You do need to feel comfortable with it. It almost needs to feel like it's a second part of like your anatomy, so you understand it and you can work with it. And I think a lot of times people, you're like, oh, I took a class, I'm good.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah, when's the last time you fired?
When's the last time you fired? And quite frankly, let's just say it's been 8 years. Like I have a girlfriend that's like, oh yeah, I took a class in CCW about 8 years ago. Okay, well, when did you fire the gun last? Oh, in the class. Okay, that's really, so do you still remember how to rack it? Do you know how to load it? Do you know how to clean it? Can you take it apart? Where's the safety? She couldn't tell me anything. And I do want to make sure that everybody here understands that this is not just a one-time thing, that your safety is something that you should take into account day in and day out, and you should want to make sure that you are training for it. I call it, it's almost like a marathon.
Absolutely.
You need to keep everything there. So, and just because you have a pistol doesn't mean you should possibly carry it. So,
right. And you don't have to go to a firing range to be proficient with a firearm.
Exactly.
Yeah, I do 80 to 85, 90% of my training at home in dry fire.
And explain, how do you do, what's your training in dry fire? What do you do? Because I understand what dry fire is. You've got everything, and you like hold it in the holster and take it out of the holster and do everything. But can you tell my listeners what is dry fire?
Yeah, so dry fire is the ability to practice with your firearm at home with no ammunition. So first off, the gun is unloaded, 100% unloaded. You know the safety rules. You don't let the muzzle cover anything you're not willing to shoot. So I'm going to dry fire into a safe area, like my fireplace. But what it really involves is me being able to, say, practice my grip on the gun, or maybe I'm just going to practice my sight picture, lining up my sights on a blank wall, or pulling the trigger without disturbing the sights in my home. No ammunition in the same room at all. And again, I spend a majority of my time in dry fire. I'm 40, 50 minutes from the range. I can't go there every day, although I shoot a lot, but yeah.
Right. Competitions help with that
yes,
too.
Yeah. I probably on the range 3 times a week, and about 800 and 1,000 rounds a week is what I shoot.
And that was another safety tip you said. You don't want to point the muzzle of the gun unless you're ready to shoot at it. So
Absolutely.
A lot of people, they hold a gun for the first time and they're not sure how they should hold it, and they're pointing it at either at something or somebody across the counter, and it's just proper etiquette and control of the gun and understanding those basics, because it can easily misfire. Possibly.
Oh, absolutely. And I'll send all my students an intro letter, because I didn't know this stuff when I first learned that you weren't supposed to just how do I get from the car to the range? Do I just pick it up and carry it?
No, that's good. Exactly. You shouldn't just pick it up and carry it.
But I didn't know this stuff either. So that's part of the classes. I'll send out an intro letter going, okay, here's what you wear, here's what you bring, here's what to expect. Your gun has to arrive in a case unloaded. The men mean well, but don't load your wives' magazines for them before my class.
Exactly. So what if they're sitting there looking at it and then something happens? Yeah, exactly. That's how accidents happen.
Yeah.
So anyways, like you said, a pistol is not for every situation, and knowing the difference how and when to use these different tools for self-defense requires more than just one day of training, people. I want to make that clear. It takes practice, repetition, and I guess almost a dedication in what I say to make sure you understand what you're trying to use, whether it's pepper gel, pepper spray, or a pistol. We will talk about that more in just a moment, but if you're just tuning in, you're listening to Connecting Tucson with Jamie, where we focus on connecting our community, local businesses, and organizations to help our community grow and thrive. As your local insurance professional for all of your insurance needs, I know how important it is to make new and lasting connections in our community. You never know how a connection will create a spark or pull you in a unique direction. If you are a small business owner or involved in a community project and you would like to be featured on the show, please feel free to give me a call. All of my information is on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, and I would love to hear from you. We were just talking with Terry Keefe, the owner and lead instructor of Take Charge, a wonderfully unique business structure helping women become more empowered to take charge of their life and surroundings. Now, Terry, a business like this is bound to draw some different types of opinions and ideas about what you actually do. Do you find that maybe people have a certain misconception about what you teach or the expectations about what you do?
I think the biggest misunderstanding is probably they think, oh, it's a self-defense class.
Oh, okay.
I don't want to do self-defense. So I always have to say, hey, my classes do not require physical contact. We're not going to be doing Krav Maga, or I'm not going to have you jumping around. So I can accommodate everyone. And so that's probably the biggest one.
So what's the biggest thing that you do to help combat the misconceptions? Do you put things on your website? Or are there other things that you do?
Mostly on the website or the Facebook page. So
Okay.
I'll try to say, hey, this is personal safety or options for personal safety rather than personal safety skills.
Oh,
So
okay.
it's a fine line,
It is a fine line. I
right?
can see how people would think that it's more of a
Self-defense.
self-defense, but it's more or less, like you said, training you to get out of situations and maybe thinking outside of the box.
Right. Or I'll say it's not a physical self-defense class. That's the
Yes.
biggie.
So there are so much to learn in your classes, and I think people can take away so many different key elements. How do you break up the trainings, or is there like a natural progression to your classes? Like, do you start like at the beginning of the month with like section 1, 2, and 3, and then the next week 4, 5, and 6? How do you help people progress towards their goal of maybe ultimately achieving their goal of being proficient in either a pistol or the pepper gel?
Right. So first position or first class to start in really is intro to pistol.
Okay.
Even if you've had a history of shooting in the past, as an instructor, I really want to know that the fundamentals of marksmanship are sound. So I don't know who you've been taught, by, or maybe it can be as simple as just fixing the grip at first, but that will affect everything down the road. So I always say, even if you have a history of shooting, please come to my intro class first. I'll have all varieties of students there. There may be some women who have shot before, some women that have never touched a firearm before. So I say, please understand that we spend a lot of time learning these guns without shooting at first. So the round count with intro isn't huge. But then after that, I say, okay, you can stay for an optional CCW permit the same day. So we'll do it all in the same day. 4 hours of hands-on training on the range, 3 hours of classroom time if you want your permit. And at that time, that's when I'll introduce the pepper gels, the pepper sprays, and the striking tools as well. So
Okay.
they'll leave my intro class with a plan in place. Exactly. They'll know, okay, if I leave here today and come face to face with a criminal confrontation, I know exactly what to do. They may not be proficient with a firearm yet, but we do talk about how to have a plan in place. And I literally talk about that. And we'll give specific examples. Okay, when you stop to get, fuel up your car, let's talk through it. So that's why the women-only classes really work for us, is we can ask specific women questions. Yeah.
So let's give us some of those other situations that you might help teach your women in the class. What are some situations that you walk them through?
Right. So let's take the vehicle safety. I just taught a vehicle safety last week. We actually brought a Bronco onto the range, drug it.
Oh.
Yeah, Pima Pistol range is the best. And Brad and Andy let me borrow their Bronco, and they towed it down there for
They're
me.
phenomenal.
They're awesome. But it wasn't about shooting. I talked about safety when it comes to vehicles, how to approach your car maybe from the passenger side, or how to park in a well-lit area first. I think the big situation, because it was following the incident that happened at the premium outlet malls.
We'll get that in a second.
Yeah, and we specifically walk through how do you enter your car. First thing you do is you get yourself in the car and you hit the lock button, number one. And then go ahead and start the car and turn on the air. But what I find in Arizona is it's hot here. So you get in your car, you start it up, you put your purse in the passenger side, you lower your windshield, and there, as you're letting the car cool off, you're thinking, well, maybe I'll sit here and check some emails. Windows down, cars running, doors unlocked. That's a soft target to a criminal. So we'll talk about other options or other situations that would create women being a soft target, because let's face it, criminals are looking for an easy job. Otherwise they'd go out and go to work, right?
Exactly.
But another example might be, I see this all the time in the supermarkets. So you get the shopping cart, the little area where the kids are supposed to sit. That is not a purse parker. But you need to cross-body your purse. Find a purse that has long enough straps that you can cross-body it. That way you're paying attention to it rather than leaving it in the shopping cart while
And
you're
walking away from it.
Yeah, over digging through the apples. So it's really simple things like that that makes you think. And then we'll talk about also, having your safety items in hand or accessible. So it's also a tangible reminder to just pay attention to what the heck's going on around you. Get off your phones, get off these cell phones.
Exactly. And I think a lot of times we might think, oh, we're okay. We're in a bubble. We're in Tucson. Nothing's going to happen. But then something like the Tucson Premium Outlet happens.
Yeah.
So how do you use that type of real life scenario in your class?
We'll just walk through it. what would we do instead? I use the Uber example. We'll talk about, okay, if you need an Uber, here's what you need to do. You've got the app. You need to make sure you approach the Uber from the passenger side, not get yourself too close to the car because distance is your friend when it comes to personal safety. And you ask them, who are you here to pick up? And wait. They better know your name or you're not getting in the car.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we'll walk through specific scenarios like that.
That's wonderful. And I think every woman, it's eye-opening.
Mm-hmm.
We're kind of, I think, in what I consider it's not a placebo, but we're kind of out there not really checking this scenario. I think we have a false sense of security because maybe we have our husband with us, but maybe your husband's not paying attention either. So even though we have people with us, I still think it's important that we kind of understand our surroundings and maybe assess that. What are some potential targets and how can we neutralize them?
Absolutely.
So do you sell any of these tools that you do, like the glass breakers or the pepper gel?
Mm-hmm. They're available on my website at takecharge.info, but I bring them directly to the class. I didn't used to do that. However, I found out because the quality, I bring a level 3 pepper gel with me, which is the hottest that you can get.
Okay.
And so before I didn't bring it with me, and I found that ladies were going to knock off products because it would save them $1 or $2, and it was maybe half strength and not the quality. So the last thing you want to do is to rely on something when your life is on the line and you go to pull it out and it doesn't work.
What's the shelf life on those gels?
5 years on the gels and the sprays, as long as you don't leave them in your hot car. Yeah,
Okay.
hot car or cold car.
So you should probably keep them in your purse or somewhere on your keychains?
Well, so I have them strategically in my purse, but not buried in my purse. So,
all right. So talk about that. How do
Yeah.
you strategically place them?
Yeah, so I don't even put mine on my keychain. And if I'm going to put it on my keychain, I would say get a quick release attachment for it. Make sure that you can get it off your keychain quick. My preference is mine has an extended tab on it, so I'll go to any arts, it's almost like a little keychain tab that's maybe 3 or 4 inches long. So that thing is sticking out of the purse, but the gel or the spray are inside my purse. I'm not a big believer in open carry, so I don't like to display my defensive items. Or if it's in my pocket, I know that the tab is hanging out. If I need to get to it, it's right there. If I find that I also teach levels of awareness, so there are times when you might be in a situation where, hey, you need to be a little bit more alert here. If I find myself in that situation, I've got the gel or the spray in my hand. So, for example, I'm leaving the movie theater. I've been in there for the movies these days are 2 hours now or two. They're
2.5, 3, 5. It keeps going longer and longer. But yeah.
So you've left your car unattended, have no idea what's going on. It's dark. Before I leave a safe building, I'm going to put my keys and my gel in my hand.
So we just talked about going to the movies and doing everything. I have a lot of friends that have teenage daughters, right?
Yeah.
And they're trying to be independent. They're thinking like they're an adult. And a lot of times, we want to let them out, but we want to make sure they're safe. Is this a class that maybe moms and teenage daughters can come to, or that you suggest for maybe females that are going off to college for the first time take? Or do you have
that's a
specific
big one.
classes that they would suggest for them?
Yes, I have a specific class. In fact, I'm going to be teaching it at 2 weeks. It's already full, but it is for moms and teens and daughters leaving the nest for the first time.
Oh, it's so scary.
Yeah, it is scary. My boys are getting ready to go, and I'm the same way. But I think the best thing is that for moms to teach them by example. Because if you tell them once, here, honey, here's your Kubotan, she's like, yeah. But coming to a class, maybe watching videos, having other people interact, or actually I'll bring inert canisters with me, which means a practice spray and gel with me.
Oh, okay.
And I'll ask for volunteers from the girls. I say, hey, who wants to try this stuff out? And that's when it's usually a game changer for them. I show them how to use it, so they don't cover up the hole. And inevitably, there'll be one person in every class that they're like, I know how to use this. And they'll go to squirt it and it shoots right up at the ceiling. And they're embarrassed. And
That happens.
Yeah. And I say, hey, don't worry about it. I'm glad that it happened here with me. and not with some crazy person coming at you.
Exactly, because that's
so,
not the time you want it to happen.
Absolutely. I love teaching the mother-daughter classes. In fact, I also teach a program called the Refuse to be a Victim program, and it gets into even more details for younger girls going, okay, if a stranger comes at me, what do I do? You know, when I mentioned earlier when I was living in San Francisco, coming from a very small town, I was so naive. I talked to everybody, and my husband would say, honey, you don't really need to give every person $1. Or,
True.
You need to maintain distance. So I'll talk a lot about distance.
Right.
Yeah.
Distances can be safe.
Oh, yeah, it's time.
And it's, again, you hit the head on the nail like I was going to talk about. It's not just teenage daughters. I think it's every young girl needs to understand how to assess a situation. They may just think, oh, I'm with mom and dad, or mom and dad is just over there. They can be maybe 5 feet away and still something can happen. So teaching them that is very, very important. So
Yeah, I do that. I play the game with my sons. I'll say, hey, when we were first learning this, I say, did you see that person over there? And they're like, what guy? I'm like, dude, there was a guy in a hoodie like crouched down on that side. Did you not see him? They're like, no. And so we're now they're a little bit more aware about what's going on.
So let me ask you, how often do you teach these mother-daughter classes? And are you able to do like maybe private parties?
I do. My safety classes right now are on a demand, and I do just do private groups right now. So I'll either do a private real estate company. I did one for Sean Edgar a couple months ago.
Okay.
I will do a mother-daughter. I'll do like at the hospital. If they say, hey, can you gear this specifically to our nurses?
Walk me through what that looks like. That's kind of interesting.
It's more for that. It's because you can't carry a concealed firearm in hospital.
No, you can't.
And so that gets into the carrying the gel, but then mostly having it accessible. Like, okay, where are you going to carry this? Remember where you parked. Maybe you're in the parking garage. Today you're on level 4. Tomorrow you're on level 1. So it's walking them through maybe learning where the call boxes are at the hospital if you have an emergency. So each group is different.
Oh, that's so nice that you can tailor that. So phenomenal. Well, I have to admit, I do recommend that everyone at least checks out your website. And what is your website again?
Takecharge.info.
Exactly. Hey, you got it. I was going to help you out just in case I had it written here. Some people like go, what was the website? That's good. So let me ask you this. Because you mentioned real estate. I do have a lot of business clients. What's different about real estate versus the nursing? How do you, you said you tailor it, but what's different specifically for the real estate classes?
So for example, on the real estate class, I'll talk about how do you have an open house? Mm-hmm. How do you do a showing? And we'll talk a lot about creating smoke and mirrors. How do you post your signs? Like, for example, instead of just listing one real estate agent on an open house, I'll say list 2. Or always be sure that you attend a showing with somebody else. Don't rely on a phone app to keep you safe unless, in my situation, it took me about 10 minutes to even find my phone, and it is an out-of-state area code. So when I called 911, she said, what's your emergency? I told her, and she said, where are you located? And I went blank. I couldn't even remember my address. So how does the
out-of-state area code actually affect 911?
I'm not sure, but she did not know where I was at.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
so I don't know if my locator was off on my phone, but it took 20-some minutes for the police to even show up at my house.
Oh, wow.
And so if you think you're a realtor that's going to rely on a phone app, I teach a specific drill in my pistol class. It's called the Tudor drill. And it is basically attempting to draw a firearm from your holster, shooting 2 rounds while someone runs the other direction, obviously, and you'll see how far a person can travel in 2 seconds. And it's about 21 feet. So it's a eye-opening, yeah.
Very eye.
So it could be even, I didn't mean to interrupt you, it could be even as simple as you don't park your car in the driveway. You park your car at a showing outside on the street so you don't get blocked in. You always go in. I bring it's called a door wedge, and I'll show them how to use the door wedge that you can put on the hinge of the door so it cannot be shut behind you. Because in many real estate abduction or criminal situations, they will shut the door behind you, lock it, and then
You're locked in.
You're in deep doo. right?
Yeah, you're
right.
you better have some of the other like pepper gels or some other stuff besides being able to do that.
Yeah. So it goes on. It's endless.
So you do pistol class.
Mm-hmm.
Are your pistol classes separate from your gel classes, or what are all of the classes what are some of the over level of the classes that you offer in services?
Right. So the pistol class is very separate from the safety classes.
Okay.
Pistol class minimum age is 14.
Okay.
If a parent is comfortable that their daughter is mature enough to listen to me, then I say bring her. You know, I've had 14-year-olds. My boys both started shooting when they were 11. They shoot competitively now. But the first thing is the intro class. The CCW is an option. The gel and safety classes are completely different. And then once the intro is completed, I'll say, yes, please come back and keep training. So we have what we call pistol practice days.
Okay.
Your firearms classes are ongoing, your safety classes. Once you have it, you have it.
Okay. And how old do you have to be to do the gel and sprays?
You cannot purchase gels unless you're 18 and over.
Okay.
The good news is that U of A does allow the students to carry peppered gels now. You cannot carry a firearm on campus, but that's pretty cool. So if you're going to college, check.
Let's do that. So you have we are obviously U of A is we're a college town.
Mm-hmm.
What type of things can you do as a student to help maybe keep your awareness there and keep yourself protected?
Go out in pairs.
Okay.
Don't go out alone. Drinking and dating don't mix. Period. End of story.
Got it.
Yeah, and have a plan in place.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, is there anything else that I haven't covered that you'd like to, maybe go there?
I just hope that women, I'm so grateful that they trust me to be their instructor. And it's so exciting for me to see ladies go from I'm terrified to you're really leaving. We're hooting and hollering and cheering. And it's just a great experience. So, yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Let me ask you this then. What do you love best about what you do?
Oh, boy, that's a biggie.
Take your time.
I think I was at a conference this week and an expo this weekend, and when I had a husband came up to me and gave me a big high five, he said, "Terry, I am so thankful for you teaching my wife." He goes, "But now she's addicted to this shooting stuff. She wants to go out shooting all the time." But I think that's awesome. So that's a huge compliment for me.
Oh,
Yeah.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And I can honestly tell you love what you do. You love teaching people. You have a passion for it. You want people to be protected. You want to have them be confident in their surroundings and what they're using, because the last thing I want or you want is for someone to have their husband's gun and not be able to use it, and then it gets taken away from somebody.
Oh, absolutely. Retention is huge. And also for the women that just want to learn to shoot for plinking. It's kind of fun. I think it's therapy.
So for the people that don't understand what plinking is,
we're going to just go to the range and shoot and have fun. So yes.
Sorry, I knew what
That's
it was.
fun. I love it.
I like hearing the pew plink, pew plink. It's one of those like little metal targets. I love it. It is kind of fun, and it can be very therapeutic. So, well, right now, everybody, that is all that we have for With Connecting Tucson with Jamie here at the Stewart Title Studios on Broadway. If you like the show, let us know. You can find all of the social media links and today's information for Terry Keefe and Take Charge on TucsonBusinessRadioX.com, Connecting Tucson with Jamie. As always, don't be afraid to step out of your comfort zone and make that connection. You never know where it's going to lead or who you might meet. Until next time, this is Jamie Overturf with Farmers Insurance. Keep on making unique connections, Tucson. Have a fabulous Tuesday.